So we're calling the meeting to order, and we're talking today about are vegans facing extinction? And we think the exact opposite is true. In fact, Climate Diet did a survey just 2 weeks ago showing that absolutely the number of vegans are increasing. It was a survey done of over 1,000 people through SurveyMonkey, people of all ages across the country. So it was very much disinterested. They weren't vegans, they were just the general population. And 70% of those people surveyed said they were eating less meat. So we do know the trend is favorable for reducing climate change from animal agriculture and for people improving their own health through more plant-based eating. So my job right now is to introduce Larry Frank. Larry is the co-chair of Climate Diet and a longtime friend and colleague. Larry has been definitely an instrumental person in the growth of Climate Diet, and he's going to do a little overview of us. But I'd just like to say we worked together for 7 or 8 years at the National American Indian Housing Council. He was editor. He is a journalist now with Bloomberg News Group. He was a journalist for National American Indian Housing Council as editor of Native American Housing News. And at that time, and it probably continues today, housing on reservations for Native Americans is extremely substandard. It's like third world conditions. And that newspaper helped to promote awareness of the substandard nature of Indian housing and started changing things. And over the course of the time that both of us worked for that organization, we saw 36 tribes able to start housing programs with outside agencies. It wasn't just HUD subsidized homes, but they were market rate homes and allowed tribes to bring in professionals like doctors and attorneys and get services that they had been denied because of the lack of housing. So at this time, I'd just like to thank Larry for all that work that he did then and for being a part of our organization now. So Larry, let me turn it over to you, and thank you so much for all the work that you've done for Climate Diet.
Thank you, Jane.
Larry is speaking through the phone, so we.
Yeah. The understanding of how what we eat impacts our health, and more than that, not just the welfare of animals either, but the climate of our planet. I've known and worked with Jane efforts that all those tribes on remote reservations were able to launch housing programs, create needed housing, new jobs, and
Jane, sorry to we can't hear Frank.
You can't hear him?
No, I think nobody can hear him, so I think we can skip probably to the next speaker.
Larry, they're not able to hear you. Do you? What? I'm not sure why, Larry. On your computer? Larry, maybe what we can do is bring you back later if you want to keep trying to get on. Since no one can hear you, I think we'll just stop there and just move on at this point. But thank you so much.
okay, thanks. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So the next speaker actually is myself, and I have a slideshow. So let's see if I can pull it up. And it's just really short and talking about the records being set around. Mac, I need to share my screen with everybody.
Yep, you can click, there's a share option below.
I hit share, it's on the top of mine. Oh, it says unable to share right now.
Hold on, let me. Okay.
Can you share it?
Yep, yep. Give me 1 second. Now I'll be making you the host so you can share.
Okay,
Now you can share. Now you can share screen.
okay. Oh, you are in?
I think so. Can people see and hear me?
I just put up my screen. Mac, can you see my screen?
No, we can't see your screen. You need to
I
click
hit
on the share
share.
button
I
and
hit
then
the
share
share
the
button.
presentation.
It just keeps giving me a message saying we can't share right now. Larry says he's in though.
Yep, we can see him. He's on the screen.
Okay, well,
Larry, we
why don't we let Larry finish talking? Go ahead, Larry. Why don't you finish talking?
Larry, we can't hear you.
They can't hear you. Use the button on your screen, the audio on your screen, if you can.
Video, and I see myself in an inset on the screen, but no one can hear me.
Can you hear Larry talking?
Just
Nope,
barely.
yep.
Barely.
All right. If I talk really loud, is that adequate?
You can try talking onto my. Give it a go, Larry.
Okay. All right. Sorry that these technical things are happening, but well, it's been a pleasure to be part of Climate Diet's early days and its evolution to a consequential. Nearly 30 years, so I know she doesn't do anything halfway. When we worked together at the National American Indian Housing Council, which she talked about, it was through her efforts that all those tribes on remote reservations were able to launch housing programs, create needed housing, new jobs, employing tribal members as builders, mortgage associates, plumbers, and other skilled occupations that relate to housing people. But today we're going to tackle climate. I'd just like to mention the early days of Climate Diet. And when we had a newsletter and not much else. And today, as many of you know, Climate Diet offers a weekly podcast, Climate and Cuisine, receiving 1,000 views on YouTube weekly. We have a website filled with resources for consumers, getting 9,000 to 10,000 views a month. A weekly newsletter with recipes going to 7,000 subscribers weekly. An educational program, The Power of Food, with Montgomery County Public Schools, funded by the county. Community Veg Fests, reaching more than 1,000 people in their communities, and a Meat Down pledge to ask people to give up meat for 1 day a week, which is highly doable by everyone. And webinars such as today's, bringing experts together.
Jane, we can't hear Larry.
Who endorsed our Power of
Can
Food program.
you hear him now?
Yep.
So now if I may turn it back to Jane.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate that. It seems that at least some part of that people could hear. So thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for all your work as our co-chair. At this time, the slideshow that I have, Mac, it won't let me share. I've tried sharing it like 10 times, and it just keeps giving me a message saying unable to share. I sent it to you. Do you want to try sharing it? Otherwise, I can just go ahead.
I mean, you shared me a dry version. It's not opening on my screen, so I think you can start explaining. Try sharing it. Give it a one more try. Try sharing it.
It just says unable to share right now. So I'm not sure why, but I'll just go through a few of the slides and some of the data and shorten it, and then we'll move to our first speaker, Dr. Janet O'Shea, who goes by Jay. So again, thanks everybody for joining us, and sorry for all these technical difficulties. I was going to talk about the future of food, veganism, and climate. So the first part of that is really to talk about what's happening in our climate. And I think most of us know things have been getting substantially hotter on planet Earth. In fact, 2025 is one of the three hottest years on record since records began to be kept in the 1800s. The 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold that was set by the UN as a goal of not to prevent further climate change is not passing that, has been passed, and we are 1.6 degrees above pre-industrial levels. The number of frequency of dangerous heat days has increased. There were 41 days of dangerous heat worldwide in 2025. So the environmental stress continues. The acceleration of the ice melt. Certainly people have seen photographs on the news of what's happening in Antarctica and further north, where there's a path now to Russia, a sea path to go from Russia to Alaska. So all of the ice melt continues. Some other things that have been happening, certainly in Los Angeles, and that was probably close to a year ago, maybe not quite a year. The dryness of the climate and the drought that that city experienced resulted in a heightened risk and severity of wildfires, where whole neighborhoods were burned. And this may be something that Dr. Janet O'Shea might talk about, since she's a resident of LA and has seen it firsthand, how horrible that was for that city, but how unusual it was as well to have entire communities just go up in flames. So the reason for this is greenhouse gas emissions keep increasing. Since the Industrial Revolution, they just keep going up and up and up. And the concentrations are now more abundant than any time in 800,000 years. The particularly dangerous ones, of course, methane is considered the worst. It's 80 times as potent as carbon dioxide. So heats up the atmosphere that much faster. And so the Earth's surface temperature continues to rise, but 90% of that increase is felt by the oceans. 40, more than 41% of populations around the world are now, animals around the world face extinction because of global temperature rises. So that is also a huge impact on our natural environment. I have a little, you can't see it, unfortunately, but it's a video that was shown in the Guggenheim Art Museum in New York that I took a video of, and it shows the temperature rise from 1869 through the current time. And it just is an evolving circle that goes out and out and out. So you miss seeing that, but I think we all know it's true. Part of the issue of climate change is what do we eat? And meat is a staple for many, many families. I have a chart showing how many animals are eaten in a single day. 900,000 cattle in a single day are slaughtered for food. 1.4 million. 1.4 million goats, 1.7 million sheep, 3.8 million pigs, 202 million chickens, and hundreds of millions of fish are slaughtered every day for food. In particular, cattle are the most damaging due to their size and their resources needed to keep them alive to the environment. I have a chart showing in terms of food, and again, I regret that you're not able to see these. We'll be glad to send this slideshow to anybody afterwards, but beef it's a chart on gas emissions by the food we eat. So the top line of that chart is cattle and the greenhouse gas emissions from cattle. Second, actually, is chocolate. And far down on the chart, near the bottom, maybe 1/100th of the impact, tofu, potatoes, peas, bananas. So fruits and vegetables, very low impact, as I think we all know. But animals, particularly beef, massive impact on the climate from methane being produced. And cattle in particular burp out methane, but the waste products are also release methane. And then the food needed to feed cattle also produce methane. So they're huge methane contributors to the environment. There was a chart from the UN that showed methane by sector. Agriculture is at the very top of that list. Comes from our world and data, but much bigger than cars, much bigger than industry. Agriculture is by and far the largest contributor to methane emissions per capita in the country. Climate scientists have been tallying the percent of greenhouse gas emissions coming from raising livestock. Gerard Bishop, a climate scientist from Australia, has done significant reports on this, and his data shows that 53% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from animal agriculture. And some of this is raising livestock, growing the food for livestock, getting their products to market, and the missed opportunity lost from deforestation. So his is very comprehensive. There are others that have done data. Dr. Salish Rayo, another well-known climate scientist and the head of Climate Healers, has done significant work in this area as well. It's interesting to know that Albert Einstein talked about this while he was still alive, and he said, nothing will benefit human health and increase the chances for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution toward a more plant-based diet. Certainly a smart man in talking about plant-based eating way ahead of most of the rest of the world. One of the things that's causing concern of health professionals is also the increased obesity that we're seeing. And by the year 2035, half the global population will be overweight. It's particularly bad for children. There's been huge increases in the rate of obesity among children. But one of the reverse trends of that, or the trend that can reverse that, is plant-based diets. Much healthier. I mentioned earlier that oceans were being affected. More than 1,550 of the nearly 18,000 different marine animals assessed by the International Union for Conservation of Nature are currently at risk of extinction. The source of that is Pew Charitable Trust, but it also shows how much danger our oceans are in. I think Larry already talked about some of the things Climate Diet is trying to do to reverse these trends, and we're seeing more awareness. The survey we did showed 30%, or pardon me, 70% of the people in the recent survey were definitely aware of the connection between what they eat and the climate. So we feel like our work and the work of many others is starting to catch on, or people are getting more aware of this. One thing that's been hampering us a bit is the meat industry has launched multiple disinformation campaigns. Dr. Jay O'Shea is going to be talking about this specifically. I'm not going to go into it, but we look forward to her presentation. So that ends mine, and just like to thank you all for your attention. And let me just ask if we have Elizabeth Kahn in the audience. Elizabeth was going to introduce you, Jay. And not seeing her. So let me do that. We're thrilled to have you back, Jay, because you've been at one of our prior webinars, and we so appreciate you sharing your knowledge. And particularly today's topic, these campaigns being launched by the meat industry seem so destructive and so, I don't know, evil to try and influence people in such a way when it's not good for their health to be overeating meat. But Janet, Dr. O'Shea is a professor at UCLA. She's has several areas of expertise. She is a food and politics professor. And also, I think culture is part of your background where you also teach. So those two are certainly huge when it comes to food choices. And let me just turn it over to you, Dr. O'Shea. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jane. And thanks, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to get to talk to you about food politics. So we're hearing a lot lately about how meat is back, how the so-called war on saturated fat and, again, so-called protein is over, and how that means that veganism has failed. We hear that a new trend, a so-called whole food move toward supposedly high-quality animal protein, has sprung up in place of plant-based eating. And we're fed messages that this vindicates meat and shows us that the plant-based movement was misguided. There are a lot of problems with this idea. One is that the reversion to the status quo never justifies the status quo. It just tells us that there is a status quo. The other is that the plant-based movement didn't just lose ground. That ground was actively taken away. A new trend didn't just appear. Instead, the meat industry actively smeared efforts to shift eating patterns. In other words, if we look at Nicholas Klein, labor organizer Nicholas Klein's quote, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win," we are definitely at the they fight you phase. I've been in this movement long enough that I remember well the ignoring and the laughing. So at least we can say they're not laughing anymore. But let's take a look at some of the tactics the industry has used. So here's RFK Jr.'s infamous inverted food pyramid. You can see he positions meat, cheese, other animal products right up in the most visible top left corner. And we can also see that whole grains are at the very bottom and beans and nuts are virtually absent. This flies in the face of scientific consensus. And that scientific consensus has formed the basis of eating guidelines across countries around the world, which you can see in the examples of Canada and Japan's visual food guides. Chris McCaskill of the Viva Longevity YouTube channel, who's a climate scientist and earth scientist, he points out that RFK Jr.'s new inverted food pyramid still encourages the consumption of fruits and vegetables. And that's clearly a good thing. And so on the surface, this might look like some kind of compromise, but it actively discourages the consumption of legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. McCaskill says, and I agree with him here, that this is because beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains threaten the meat industry directly in a way that produce doesn't. They're hearty, they're filling, they're cheap, they can easily form the centerpiece of a meal, and of course they contain protein, which is a word that increasingly has come to be used as a synonym for meat, incorrectly. And again, this isn't accidental. So this move isn't new. It's a campaign that goes back at least a decade, if not more. And it all hinges on this one point, attacking alternatives to the centrality of meat in the standard American diet. So what is this industry campaign? Well, like any good campaign, it has several fronts. The campaign has at least two sides: attacking whole plant foods as inadequate or even harmful, while also going after attempts to invite meat eaters in through the creation of new products that cater to their tastes. Interestingly, this campaign is not only about countering the threat, the economic threat that plant-based foods, and particularly plant-based proteins, pose to the meat industry, it also generates revenue in its own right. So let's take a look at some of these false narratives and some profit motives. So many of us probably remember the anti-soy hysteria of the late noughts and early 2010s. This focused on phytoestrogens in soy, and we all heard a lot about, oh, soy causes cancer, it causes reproductive cancers because it has estrogen, it's going to cause quote unquote man boobs. Well, this was based on studies in rats, and it was debunked multiple times with the evidence that in fact soy doesn't cause cancer, it actually protects against cancer. And that's because phytoestrogens work differently than animal estrogens. They actually are beta blockers. This idea was propagated by the Weston Price Foundation. Interestingly, they're a nonprofit, but they propagate, quite frankly, kooky ideas about saturated fat being healthy, about cholesterol not being harmful. They promote the consumption of full-fat animal products. And sadly, they've had a number of prominent members die quite prematurely because of cardiovascular disease. It was also picked up by Joseph Mercola, who is a physician, but is also very interested in what is called regenerative grazing. Joseph Mercola subsequently recanted his anti-soy position and said, oh, well, I was only referring to soy protein isolates. I wasn't talking about tofu and tempeh, but that ship had already sailed. And interestingly, Joseph Mercola makes a lot of money selling supplements. So Then we had the critique of beans. The beans are full of anti-nutrients, phytates and lectins. So where did that come from? Well, it came from a diet, a fad diet in Japan, where people were eating raw kidney beans. Not surprisingly, they were getting sick from doing this, because eating raw dried beans is not exactly a good idea. One of the main proponents of that was Stephen Gundry, and not surprising, wrote a lot about lectins, and his book is called The Plant Paradox. And not surprisingly, he makes a lot of his revenue off of selling supplements and diet books. Then we had grains, The Grain Brain, the book The Grain Brain, various other publications, and one of the compounds that they were focusing on was gluten. There is the very real condition of celiac disease, which affects about 1% of the population. But from that, some of these authors extrapolated that gluten must have an autoimmune disease-inducing effect. It doesn't, but it did spark a huge sub-industry of gluten-free convenience foods. And then we had the attack on so-called seed oils, and the argument that, in fact, the scientists have been lying to us. Doctors have been lying to us. Unsaturated fat is bad. Saturated fat is good. The key issue that the people promoting this idea honed in on is that they kept saying, well, you can see there is a decline in publications saying saturated fat and cholesterol are bad for you. So that must mean that that's no longer the scientific consensus. In fact, that's not how scientific consensus works. It's actually the opposite. Once something is established as part of the scientific consensus, there isn't a need to keep publishing papers about it. So one of the main proponents of this idea of the idea that saturated fat is good for us and doctors and scientists are lying is Nina Teicholz. She's not a scientist or a medical doctor. She's a journalist. She's made a lot of money from her diet books, but also, interestingly, she has backing from an Exxon billionaire. So these narratives come and go. The anti-soy hysteria has largely disappeared, although it's still pretty hard to get soy milk in cafes and restaurants, so it's had its effect. Lies tend to be compelling, hence this quote of "the lie is halfway around the world while the truth is putting its shoes on." It's attributed to Mark Twain, but he didn't actually say it. Ideas that run contrary to common sense and to received wisdom tend to have an appeal, particularly in the United States. I think we really tend to celebrate the contrarian position. But once an idea has landed, it's hard to shift. And that's where a social scientist, or social psychologist rather, Daniel Kahneman, came up with this idea of repetition makes truth. Like if we hear something enough, we tend to believe it, even if it has no basis in reality. As if all that wasn't enough, then came in another critique. It's processed. And this is one we hear a lot now, that, oh, plant-based meats are unhealthy, plant milks, sometimes even tofu. It's bad for you because it's processed. And sometimes we hear this idea that, oh, plant-based meats are worse for you than meat. They're not. And often this comes from people who are not raw foodists, but are in fact eating the standard American diet, which raises the question of what actually are processed foods, and are the people who are putting forward this critique, do they even know what processed versus unprocessed foods actually are? So this idea comes from the NOVA scale. It was developed by a group of scientists in Brazil. NOVA is Portuguese for new. And the idea was to categorize foods simply based on the level of processing, not based on their nutrient profile, not even necessarily based on how good for you or bad for you they are, just on their level of processing. And the scientists were interested in figuring out, is there something about ultra-processed foods, highly processed foods? Is there something aside from the sugar, fat, and salt that makes them hyperpalatable and that causes them to have adverse health effects? So that was really their research question. So NOVA 1 is parts, as we can see here from the diagram, from the chart. These are parts, food entities that undergo basic kinds of alterations. Category 2 are additives that are common in regular cooking. So things like salt, oil, honey, sugar. Category 3 is where you add 1 plus 2. So they call it traditional methods, but things like canning, pickling. So a can of beans, for example, or a bakery bread. And then when we get to 4, Nova 4, we're talking about ultra processed foods. So these are typically additives that have some sort of industrial formulation. Sometimes it's foods that have been processed in ways to affect their aesthetic appeal, in terms of their texture, their coloring, etc. So this was quite a useful scale for what the Nova scientists were trying to do, which was to explore this idea of what is the nature of these new products that have come on the scene in the last, say, 5 decades or so? And is there something about them that makes them hyper palatable? But this is the important part when we're thinking about meat industry disinformation. There has been a selective application of certain kinds of NOVA criteria to certain products. And there's been some inbuilt assumptions that are not actually accurate. So just because it's in group 1 doesn't mean it's healthy. Steak is in group 1. Theoretically, you could eat a puffer fish, which is poisonous, but that would be in group 1 because it's minimally processed. Also, there isn't necessarily a hierarchy here. So as we move from group 1 to group 4, you would tend to assume, oh, well, each one gets more and more unhealthy. But group 2 is things like sugar and salt. Group 3 is when you add 1 and 2. So clearly a can of beans is much healthier than just eating a handful of salt. Most group 4 foods are unhealthy, but not all of them are. So, for example, shredded wheat is in that category because the process of extrusion is something you couldn't do in your home, but shredded wheat is actually much healthier than a lot of other food products. The Nova scientists talked about the number of ingredients as a descriptor for ultra-processed foods. But for them, it's not a determining factor. So you could make a 15-bean soup with a whole bunch of vegetables in it, and that would be like a 30-ingredient food, but it wouldn't be unhealthy. So the Nova scientists talk about how a long list of ingredients is typical of ultra-processed foods. That doesn't mean something with only 1 or 2 ingredients is healthful, nor does it mean anything with a lot of ingredients is unhealthy. But it has been used strategically by the meat industry and by their paid influencers to say, oh, well, meat is a 1-ingredient food, so it must be healthy. The other issue is comparing like with like or comparing like with unlike. So when we get this response of, oh, Beyond Burgers, those are terrible because they are processed, what we're not hearing about is that a meat burger, a burger made from cow meat, is also considered ultra-processed. So we have 2 different ultra-processed foods, and when they've been compared in scientific studies, the people eating the Beyond Burgers had ended up with better health results, not surprisingly, because the Beyond Burgers have fiber, they have less saturated fat, they don't have cholesterol. And then the most important thing is that nutrition is a zero-sum game. Whenever we eat one thing, we're not eating something else. So the important question is, what is the food replacing? So to say, oh, well, Impossible sausages are terrible because they're processed. Well, if they're replacing a meat sausage, they're actually healthier. So some things to keep in mind as we try to tackle these misinformation and disinformation campaigns. Well, we have the truth on our side and we have data on our side. I think it's also important to recognize that for most people involved in the plant-based and the vegan movements, this isn't just a trend. It's a serious commitment. But also, just because we're at the fighting stage, it doesn't mean that we and the planet and the animals automatically win. So going back to that quote, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Nicholas Klein was a labor organizer. So he was talking about the need for resilience and fortitude. He wasn't automatically assuming that just because opponents are fighting, that a win is automatically around the corner. So then that leads to, what can we do in the face of disinformation, misinformation, and manufactured lies? Well, we can spread accurate information using valid sources. We can share our sources. Counter arguments don't necessarily convince people. So when somebody is putting forward an idea that they are convinced is true, to just fire facts back at them, often it will cause them to dig their heels in deeper. This is something that social science has established pretty persuasively. So instead, one tactic might be, when someone's spouting disinformation, is to maybe deflect to the source, like, oh, soy is terrible for you because it has estrogen in it. Oh, well, perhaps you're not aware that that idea was propagated by the Weston Price Foundation, which has pretty questionable beliefs. That might be one way of approaching it. Another thing to consider is that narratives and emotion are more influential than facts. And this is a little bit problematic because I was just emphasizing that we have the data on our side, and I think we should embrace that. But also, that's not necessarily what connects to people. So personal experience, narratives of change, narratives of empowerment, something that happened to oneself, how our own lives have been improved, or the life of somebody we know. And then my last suggestion is I'll circle back one more time to Nicholas Klein and to the labor movement. The expression "hold the line" is used in labor movements a lot, and it means to stay true to a belief system in the face of adversity. It's used often in relation to strikes, but it's also used in relation to building solidarity, to building relationships of trust. And this is really important to build supportive communities around our commitment to human health, the planet, and the animals. Sociologist Damon Centola argues that complex change doesn't happen through viral spread. It doesn't happen through a single point connecting to another point at a long distance. It happens through what he calls wide bridges. So repetition of information from people who are close to one another, who trust each other, and who have built relationships with each other. So in order to tackle disinformation, perhaps one of the best things that we can do is to build communities around shared information. Thank you.
Jay, would you like to take questions now, or would you rather wait? We could see if there's any questions from the audience.
Sure.
Let's look at the chat, or people can raise their hands. Mac, are you there?
Yep.
I don't, I
So I
have all of
think
you.
yeah.
I don't,
Hi guys, if there's any question, please raise your hand. I can promote you as a panelist.
okay. Mac,
No
also, were
questions
you,
so far, Jane. So I think we can continue.
okay,
Yeah.
did Michael Moon, were you able to get him?
No, I think I don't know. He was not able to get in. So I think we can continue.
Well, Dr. O'Shea, thank you so much for that stimulating and somewhat sad discussion of some of the meat industry and how they are attacking, and particularly the food pyramid too is so hard to actually understand, but it doesn't seem good for the American public. So we appreciate your comments, and thank you again for joining us for the second time of our webinar. So our speaker, Michael Moon, was supposed to be with us, but apparently was not able to get on. So Our third speaker is John Thomas. He's known as the vegan bodybuilder, and he uses plant-based foods and talks about their impact on your body. And he's going to be introduced by Aaron DeMarinis. Aaron, do you want to introduce John Thomas?
Of course. What an honor to have him here with me. We've spoken on a few podcasts together and a few events all about nutrition, and he's been vegan for over 20 years now. And he has disproved everybody that vegans cannot gain muscle on a plant-based diet. He is walking, living proof. Yes, love it. And he's vegan for the animals, but if you look at him, you know he is also vegan for health. And there's not any one reason that anyone should not be vegan. There's so many reasons for our planet, for our health. But John really does promote vegan bodybuilding, and he has helped as a vegan coach, help so many people gain muscle, gain their lives back, reverse diseases, make them healthier, feeling better. I mean, he's just done so much, and I've watched it online, and it's such an honor to have you here with us today, and I can't wait to hear what you have to tell us. So speak away.
Aw, thank you so much, Aaron. You're so sweet and kind, and I'm honored to be here. And yeah, I have been a vegan for over 20 years now, and bodybuilder for 18 of those years. I was actually vegan before I started lifting weights. So I have a little presentation here for everyone. Hopefully, we'll consider it somewhat entertaining. So I will share my screen, right? And I will be happy to answer any questions. So if you have questions, please let them be known at the end, or you can type them out during and we can go back after. But can you guys see what I'm sharing? Awesome. All right. So who is already vegan or plant-based? I want to make this interactive, try and get some of the people here. I came without a shirt to try and like wake some people up in case I'm not super entertaining. I'll at least try and be funny. So if you guys are already plant-based or vegan, let's put it in the chat. I won't be able to see it till after, so I'll trust that you've done it by now. And then who eats mostly plant-based? Give everybody a second. All right. And then who's curious? That's the important part. If you're curious, I hope that something in this presentation speaks to you. I hope that we're able to get those gears turning, because I was not always vegan myself. So who am I? Vegan for 20 years. This was when I wrestled right before I started lifting weights. I was about 14 years old. I'm an athlete. I'm a coach. And I think to me, the most important part is I'm an activist. I have helped over 500 people improve their health and fitness. And I have done this on a 100% plant-based diet. I have been vegan since before I even touched the weight. So I'm not here to tell you what to believe, just to show you what's possible. And this is my own story. I wanted to push things to the extreme. I became last year the world's largest vegan bodybuilder, at least to the best of my knowledge. I got up to 275 pounds. This is me before going on stage on the right. Clearly you can get all the protein that you need from plants. So in 2025, I helped create the Vegan Squad coaching team. That's huge to me, because I've worked with over 500 people, but that's still not enough. We need to help literally everyone in the world with their fitness, but also their health, and also for the environment, for the planet, for the animals. So our goal, it's a little bit lofty. We want to help at least 10 million people. I'd love to see that before my time on this earth is over. And that's why we created this super awesome team. So I want to try and connect with anybody that's maybe on the fence, or maybe they weren't there yet, but I wasn't always vegan. I was around 4 years old or so in this photo with our family dog. And I have the fish on the right, because this was the first instance that I could imagine that maybe I was a vegan person without even knowing that was a word. But I did know the word fish. And my dad asked me if I wanted to eat fish one day while we were camping. And I said, yes, of course. And he had gone fishing down by the dock, took me with him, and pulled the fish out of the water and put it on the dock. And I watched this animal suffocating, this individual that wanted to live, wanted to go back in the water. And at 4 years old, I threw a fit, and I guess threw myself down on the dock and made enough noise and a spectacle that my father put the fish back in the water and gave him another chance to live another day. Probably went from that to go eat a ham sandwich or something else. But it was the first time in my life that I realized the fish that swims in the water is the same as the fish that people would put on their plates. For me, the moment that really changed, I remember exactly where I was standing in my parents' yard next to a yellow slide. My best friend came over. Her mom would always bring us McDonald's, and we'd always eat hamburgers. And so one day I went to eat my hamburger, and she pointed at me and she said, "If you eat that hamburger, you are killing a cow." And my initial emotion, I still remember it. It was anger. I was angry that she would tell me I was wrong, angry that her mom would do something that was supposedly wrong, angry that my parents would advocate for something that was wrong. And at this time, I did not think it was wrong. But logically, I knew she was correct. I could not have the hamburger without killing a cow. And within the next 3 to 4 months, I slowly transitioned into becoming a vegetarian. I did not know anyone else doing this. And I kind of thought that was the end of the story. And then my mom messed up. I was 13 years old. On the way to middle school, she handed me a PETA magazine. She said, maybe you can learn how to cook some other things for yourself. And it had an article saying why vegetarian isn't enough. And me being 13 and knowing everything that there is to know in the world, went in here to rip a new butthole for the person who wrote the article. And by the time I got to middle school, I realized for every reason I went vegetarian, I also had to go vegan. Looking and seeing what happened to the mother hens, to their baby chicks, seeing what happens to the dairy cows, I realized I didn't want to be a part of this. I didn't know anyone else doing it. I didn't even know if it was possible. I didn't even know if it was healthy. I thought maybe I'll die, but I'll try it for at least a week. And now it's been a very, very long 20-year-long week. This is me graduating middle school, wearing the most vegan belt I could find, the only one that Target had. It was a cloth belt, but I made sure that it was vegan and didn't contribute to the suffering of any animal, or later I would realize the environment. So just some, I'm sure this has been covered, but some of the health benefits of veganism: heart health, digestion, reducing inflammation, supports energy and longevity. And this is another point where I can try and wake some people up and get them interactive. Who here in the comments has known someone that's had diabetes, cancer, heart attacks, or another preventable disease? Me, I lost my dad to cancer. I wished he would have gone plant-based. I wish we could have convinced him to try another way to live that would be better for him, better for the environment, better for the animals. And I really don't think that most diseases really are, family specific. It's not necessarily genetic. I think it is lifestyle factors that affect the majority of these. That's why they're considered preventable diseases. So animals, agriculture's impact on the planet, I think this is wherever you stand on animal rights. If you want to continue standing on planet Earth, this is where we need to wake up. This is where we need to speak up. This is where we need to educate. The leading cause of deforestation is factory farming. 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, more than all transportation combined. And what really woke me up, one of the documentaries I watched most recently was Seaspiracy, seeing just how much we destroy the oceans with commercial farming. We pollute waters. You want to even come down to human rights issues such as racism. These factories are often put in lower socioeconomic communities. Speaking blatantly, Black people in the United States are more likely to deal with crap like this than anyone else. So it's just one more way that we can learn to find what we want to change in the world and continue to speak up for it and be educated. So for me, this was the reason why I went vegan. This is the reason why I went vegetarian. The animals, we've been sold a lie. This is what free range looks like. Pigs, smarter than dogs. If you love dogs, you should love pigs. They're held in these gestation crates their whole life. And here's exactly how the mother cows look when they take milk. Not exactly fun things. So coming up, got some graphic content. If you're already vegan, feel free to look away. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So see this, like, if we were to show this to a 5-year-old, no problem, right? Like, this is your food, son, daughter. This is what we eat. This is what mommy and daddy eat. But this is what we feed our kids. And so if you're vegan, I know this hurts to see. And if you're not yet vegan, you might want to look away. But if you are vegan and you don't want to see this, we got to keep speaking. This is why I've done this for 20 years. I wish I had found my voice sooner. And I'm sorry I have to show you this, but I wanted to stop. Whether you're vegan or not, the more we can speak up, the more we can end this and go back to this. This is where I want to be. I hope I never have to show another unhappy photo the rest of my life, and maybe one day people will wake up. So I think I'm living proof. I've done this for 20 years. We got Aaron here, done this for, I think, even longer than me. Like, we don't have to cause harm. So why would we? We don't have to be perfect. It took me several months to go vegetarian, and then several years to realize that veganism was even a thing. It was the first vegan I knew. This was 20 years ago. So we've come a long way. But progress is better than perfection. If you can start with one meal a day, one day a week, get started. Seriously, it's really not that hard. One meal at a time, one swap at a time. There's so many different things. You can try almond milk instead of regular milk. Just start making the swaps and realize that you can do this. You have the power here. Stay focused on your why. If you have a strong reason why you want to make the change, anybody can do this. So I've put some easy food swaps here. Instead of animal meats, you can go with tofu, tempeh, seitan, vegan meats. Instead of eggs from a chicken, you can use just egg. Instead of cow's milk, we've got so many options now. There's vegan butters, vegan cheeses, vegan mayo. There's just about a vegan option for everything. I would say if you're looking for the health side, Whole Foods plant-based is a great place to start. But hey, if you're going to have that cheap burger on Friday, you could at least have an Impossible Burger. So when people say there's not a whole lot of options for vegans, like, there are so many options. There's more edible foods, edible vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, edible plants than there are all of the edible animals combined. So maybe this is new to some people, but I think just a reminder of what is out there. I'm not going to read these all off. There's so many options. So common fears, these are things. I've worked with 500 people who brought me questions before going vegan, things that they aren't exactly sure if they can do or not. Protein, I say that's easy. I got up to 275 pounds last year. I was eating about 370 grams of protein a day. I am the world's largest bodybuilding vegan, but you definitely don't have to eat that much. I think even just for regular people, like for my mom, 50 to 60 grams a day is plenty. It's not that hard to get. Whole Foods plant-based will take you there. Cost, often cheaper. I mean, you don't have to eat all the vegan specialty meats, things like oats, nuts, seeds, rice, beans, bananas. Those are some of the cheapest foods in the world, calorie per dollar, and they're all relatively healthy. Common fears, things like taste. Well, I've tried so many new things as a vegan. My girlfriend went vegan 2 years ago and showed me all these things that I didn't even know were vegan. There's so much out there. And once you start making it a tradition, my family's done vegan Thanksgiving for 15 years in a row now. Like and they're not even all vegan, but they just cook it that way because it's easier. You can be the change. You can help influence other people that may not be all the way there yet. Social situations, my advice, beyond presentations like this, or come hang out, see other like-minded people, find a community, go to local meetups. There's a lot out there. And you can start making an impact today. Simply educating yourself is a big part of this. So, final thoughts. I'm going to open this up for questions. It's about to end. And now, I'll leave you with a choice. I sincerely encourage you to follow your own heart and your own moral compass. Consider that each meal has an impact, positive or negative, for the animals, for the planet, for the people that love you, for you. And I've shown you the impacts upon the animals, the planet, and your health. So the decision is yours. Will you choose kindness, compassion, and health? I sincerely hope that you do. A little bit more about us. I just want to show you a little bit more social proof. We've got vegans on our team that are coaches for anywhere from 2 years to 20 years. Just proving that you can go vegan and build muscle, proving that you can be vegan and get all the protein you need and live your best life while doing it. So, survive this presentation. All I got was this lousy t-shirt. Trying to keep it entertaining, at least a little bit funny. These are some of our success stories, some of the people we've worked with over the years. Sergio is one of the coolest ones to me. He's an activist, and he came to me saying he wanted to show up and be a better part for the role. I think that's one thing that we get to be as vegans. Like, by choosing this lifestyle, people are going to judge you. So let's take away whatever ammo we can. Let's be fit. Let's be in shape. Let's be healthy. And in 6 months, Sergio lost 30 pounds and gained a lot of muscle. And he learned to actually love what he sees in the mirror. And I think some of that was just being able to commit to his cause a bit better. So our gift to you, the Vegan Squad coaching team, I talked to them. They want to give out anybody that came to this presentation, anyone that's watching it, a free month of one-on-one coaching. We have a guide for protein, a high protein cookbook, and also a month in our community so you can meet some other like-minded people. And just so you know, you'll save each year about 200 animals, 1.1 million gallons of water, 30 to 45 acres of land, and 1.5 to 2.5 metric tons of CO2. So to me, it's a no-brainer. Please, if you have any questions, you can grab that, or I'll drop the link in the chat as well. You can save it. You got a friend that's on the fence, a family member that's on the fence, send them this link. We'll help anyone that we can. Again, we want to help 10 million people. That's, I think, a dent in what we need to do. My goal for me is to pave the way a little bit easier, to make it easier for the next generation. 20 years ago, there weren't a whole lot of options. Nobody really knew what vegan was or what vegan meant. I got asked all the time, like, I don't even know what that is. Can you tell me? And now people usually ask me how I do it or why I do it. And so I think that's progress. I think the fact that almost every restaurant now has a vegan option, that's progress as well. It's something that can be done. If I could do it 20 years ago when I was 13, I promise you can do it now. I've got so many people to look to for examples. And I think you'll also find, I'll say this, since I've started hanging out with these coaches on my team, I have exponentially improved my own happiness and realized that there's other people out there doing this and that we can be happy and build the world that we want to see. All we have to do is step up and do it. So, all right. I will come back to presentate. Oh, not that one. I need to stop sharing. I will come back, answer any questions that anyone has. Just drop the link in the chat. Oh, I hope this is the right one. If anybody wants to grab that, they can, or after they can as well. Super open to ask for anyone to ask any questions or.
So John, I have a question. This is Jane, and I wanted to ask if I can steal some of your slides. Some of those are really terrific.
You can have them all. Yeah, for sure.
It was a wonderful presentation, and I love all the consumer focused information to make it really easy and let people know that yes, they can do it, and yes, there are so many options, and it's changed, I think, from 20 years ago.
100%. I mean, still, the Whole Foods plant-based has been the same, right? We haven't built any new, to my knowledge, vegetables or fruits or nuts or seeds. But for people that like to go out and eat or other things like that, there's so many open options now that we didn't have before. And I can't take all the credit. My team helped build this slide. So Coach Alex, he wrote that for me, but I'm happy to share it with you. And I think
it's a great piece of work.
Thank you. It's education. The more that we the more education we can, the better. Oh, I'm seeing I now see a different chat. I was in the wrong chat. So let me see here. Chat is disabled. Okay. They're asking how they can connect. I don't know exactly how to do that.
You're asking how to connect?
Yeah. So John, if you scroll down, if you hit the Q&A, you can see all the questions posted.
Okay. All right. How many grams of protein do I eat in a day? Last year I was doing about 370 grams a day. This year, anywhere from 300 to 350. It's still on the higher side. So I'm not encouraging anyone else to do this unless you're trying to be the world's largest vegan bodybuilder yourself. Chris said some people in a group chat were debating which is the best vegan protein powder. And then also, why do we need protein powder anyways? Elephants, rhinos, gorillas don't need them. So I think based on digestibility, like what seems to digest well for people, one of the best ones I've found is a pea protein isolate. I also have had great success with soy protein isolate. Like the first 5 years, like that was all I could find. I don't really love the rice ones as much because they don't seem to, they're a little bit more gritty. But pea protein is what I've been using majority. We don't need protein powder. I view it as just another food source. I don't think it's like a magical supplement or anything like that. It's almost like we don't exactly need flour. We don't need bread. But you can use protein powder. I think it's convenience at the end of the day. After the gym, you can make a shake, super easy. Or if you don't feel like I don't always feel like cooking tofu, so I'll maybe throw some protein powder in with oatmeal. I'll probably do that for my next meal actually, just because it's fast. But yeah, it's not, you don't need it. But Brian said he's felt like he's hit a wall with
So,
his
John,
weightlifting.
could we
Oh,
stop here
gotta,
because we have two
yeah,
more speakers, and I'm getting worried that they won't get a chance to share
yeah,
to
yeah.
share their stories. But maybe you could answer in the chat, or we could come back at the end of the two speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
it's my pleasure right now to introduce Erin DeMarinis, and we have the same last name because she's my daughter, and I'm so proud of her and what she's done. In fact, she's the reason that I'm vegan. She bought a book for my husband and I, The China Study by Colin Campbell, and we read that and we became vegans immediately. Erin's going to do a cooking segment. She is a chef for Bloom TV in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, and so does cooking shows for them so often. And she's going to do one for us tonight. So, Erin, let me just turn it over to you. And thank you so much for all the work you do in promoting veganism in Florida and nationally. I know you've been interviewing people for the Climate Diet podcast. Thank you for that as well. And can everybody see Erin? Erin, can you take over the screen? John Thomas seems to be, his name is covering mine. Mac, I don't know if you can help with this. There we go. Can everybody see Erin now? I can see you on my screen. So let's hope. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the great introduction. Just before I forget, this is my product, the Good Mood Foods. They are protein bites, and they are 100% organic, vegan, soy-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, all the frees. They're also certified kosher now, and they are also contain organic adaptogens, ashwagandha and maca. And if you're not familiar with those, adaptogens are plants like and roots and mushrooms, reishi, turkey tail, lion's mane, the list goes on. And these things that grew in the wild had to adapt. That's why they are adaptogens to our environment, and they survived all these years. So adaptogens are really important because they help with sleep, anxiety, stress, mood, and energy. And they are in my bites. And you'll, now that I've said them, you might hear them, or if you're not familiar with them, you'll start to hear that now because they're big buzzwords in the nutritional space right now. What I'm going to prepare, since we are very limited on time, I already chopped up all the vegetables. I know you can't really see, but I'll try to hold it up. So once a day, I try to get a really big salad, right? And I know in some parts of the country right now, it's a lot colder than it is here in Florida, although we've had a lot of cold weather. But if you can just plan one meal, very whole food, plant-based a day, and try to get that diversity in your plants, you're going to be better off at feeding your own gut microbiome, which is our first line of defense in our immune system, right? So it's very important that we feed that gut. And so what I like to do is show really quickly what I've put together because it's so nutrient dense. It has over 30 grams of protein and it's a salad. But you can swap out some of the ingredients if you don't like what I've chosen. But I have basically the base is spinach, massaged kale, and arugula. And then I always squeeze fresh lemon juice on top of my greens because that helps the iron absorb, and that's important. The non-heme iron, right? So this is the healthy iron. So once the lemon juice is on, then I just started adding a bunch of ingredients, and it's just easy if you do some of the prep ahead of time. I got cruciferous vegetables, broccoli and carrots. Broccoli has more protein per calorie than meat. Mushrooms, again, another powerhouse, right? With protein, fiber, all of that. So that's what John was talking about is some of the meat that people are eating. Yeah, it contains protein, but guess what? It lacks fiber. It lacks nutrients. It has high cholesterol. If you switch over to plant protein and like lentils and tempeh and tofu, you're going to get protein, enough protein, but you're also getting these amazing nutrients, fiber and phytoestrogens, things that help fight cancer. That's what's in soy. Soy got such a bad rap. I know Dr. O'Shea had talked about that, and it's very important. All right, so next I have chopped up some beets. Beets are great for athletes, right? Because for anybody, but there's a lot of athletes that use beets because it helps with athletic performance. I mean, like you could go stronger harder and stronger for longer. And these are important things. And cabbage, red cabbage. So those are the two ingredients. I really feel like every ingredient should have a purpose, right? Should have a color. It should be purposeful. I got some yellow peppers. Peppers are really good and high in antioxidants. I have some broccoli sprouts. Just going to sprinkle those on there. Broccoli sprouts are a plethora of nutrients. And then we've got some walnuts, another great additive because walnuts are the highest in omega-3s, very important for preventing and lowering cholesterol. Pumpkin seeds, another source of protein. Hemp hearts. If you're not familiar with hemp hearts, get familiar with them because 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts has over 10 grams of protein and 11 grams of fiber. Another powerhouse, building those muscles, what we need as we age. And they also really don't have much flavor, so it wouldn't really change whatever you're cooking. And then we've got some nutritional yeast, again, high in protein and also high in B12, which some vegans can be low in B12. And it gives a little bit of a cheesy flavor. Sometimes I put it on popcorn, but when I put it in a salad, you don't really even taste it, but it gives it a little kind of creaminess. And then avocado, always good for you fats, just a little bit on your salad. A few dates for a little sweetness. And then my protein powerhouse, which is lentils. Lentils has over 8 grams of protein. So that is a substantial amount of protein in a salad, right? But again, if you're up north and you are in a cold climate and you don't really want to eat a cold salad, then saute some vegetables and add it to it. You can do whatever you want. This is just what kind of I like to do because it gives me a ton of protein, but also great nutrients, very tasty. And then the dressing, that's the easy part. Have you ever cooked with, or not cooked with, but ever had tahini? Tahini again is just ground up sesame seeds. So again, high in protein. And so you just squeeze that on there you can do it right on your salad. Now they have so many squeezable ones, right? Just squeeze a drizzle on top of my salad. And then to give the salad a little bit more mixture, I guess mixturability, if that's a word, white balsamic vinegar. I like it better than red balsamic. And then a little splash of maple syrup, which is very rich in polyphenols. Again, good for the health of our gut microbiome. And that's it. Mix it up. You've got a over 30-gram protein-packed, nutrient-dense salad that is good for your gut health. Tastes delicious. It's so colorful. It's pretty. It's what I make every day. And that's the one meal I don't ever really kind of change because it's so nutrient dense. I want to make sure I feed that gut microbiome every single day. If anybody has any questions for me on nutrition or about any of the ingredients I used or substitutes that you want, just put it in the chat and we can answer those at the end. So thank you guys for having me. I'm going to eat this delicious salad for dinner. And thank you again for being here with us today.
Oh, Aaron, I just want to add that the new bites called Island Energy. We've been staring out the door at snow up here in the Washington, D.C. area. So I have been eating my bites and thinking about being on an island and not in the snow up here, but they are absolutely delicious.
Yes, almond butter, dark chocolate, and coconut, and a little sea salt. So good.
They are absolutely delicious. And that salad, I wish I had it right now too. So thanks so much for being here and sharing us. Do you have any, for one serving of your salad, do you have any sort of approximation of how many calories?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how many calories. I focus more on the nutrients and I focus more on how much protein it is. And it's probably pretty, I would say it's pretty low in calories because it's mostly vegetables, right? And a little
Right.
tiny bit of date and a little bit of avocado. So you're not looking at, and it's like a sprinkle of nuts, right? I mean, you have to be careful when you are looking at a salad where you're adding protein, because if you are trying to maintain weight or lose weight, then, you obviously want to not add too much of something that's higher in fat and calories like a walnut. But walnuts are so good for you. So include a sprinkle of it. Just measure it out. And that's a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use small little serving dishes. That way I can just sort of eyeball when I'm putting on my salad because I could put a lot of calories on it.
Yummy. Thank you so much for sharing that and for showing an easy way to have great nutrition, plant-based nutrition. So we'll move on to Jane Velez-Mitchell. Jane is coming on at the end here. We hope she'll come back for a longer segment in the next time we do one of our webinars, which will be April. But Jane, thanks so much for joining us. Jane is a broadcaster. She was with NBC Network News earlier in her career, but she has many plant-based broadcasts since then. I don't know them all, but Jane, maybe you can add some more detail and talk about your new venture.
Hi, thanks. So I would love to thank you for having me. Erin, a couple of questions. Were the lentils cooked?
Yes, the lentils, I batch those ahead of time, like on Sunday.
Okay.
I'll make a
All
little
right.
bit and then I keep them in the refrigerator to add to my salads. But
And
you could certainly cook them right before you're serving your salad and have a warm lentil salad.
I hope you stick around because I would love you to have a show on Unchained TV.
I would love that.
You would be perfect.
Let's do
Absolutely.
it.
So, yes, it's a very good thing that I just got to see you because, there are people who have a wealth of knowledge, but they can't present it in a way that's TV friendly. And you were just obviously you're doing TV regularly. So, very excited to see you do that and think about maybe how we might be able to collaborate. So, let me ask if I can. Share sound. It doesn't look like I can. Can you make me the co-host so I could share? Um,
I think Jane, you can share.
okay.
You want to
It
share screen,
okay.
right?
I want to share my screen, yeah.
Yep, you
And
Everyone
can.
else has just popped up, so I don't know. Here, I'll hit share, but Erin,
No, Jane, Jane,
I
you can
my
share
screen now
screen,
has Jane having half of it, but let me see.
but
okay,
it's
I'm just
okay.
going to yeah, I'd love to share my screen. And normally I do this like all the time, constantly. There it goes.
Just
I don't know if I could share sound, but it doesn't look like I can share sound. You might
Well,
have to.
we hear you.
No,
So
I
you,
was talking when you share the sound, then what the video you're playing, you could share that sound. That's not
oh,
letting
so
me click that. So there's two little things. When you hit share on the right, it says share sound, optimize for
yes.
video sharing, and those two options are not activated. But it's okay. We'll just do it without that. So yeah, hopefully all of you can see. Can you see this?
I can see 30,000 monkeys in our backyard.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Unchained TV. We are the world's
Okay.
only free, nonprofit streaming television network for the plant-based lifestyle. We stream more than 2,000 videos. We aggregate content, we acquire content, but we also create our own content. At Home with the Jenners, starring Brandon Jenner, the Kardashians, New Day, New Chef, which is our 30 some episode cooking series that won a taste award, a couple of taste awards. So did At Home with the Jenners, Pig Little Lies, which is the world's only
See people on TV with a little teeny
reality series starring pigs. So I would urge everybody to go and check that reality show out. And then we go down to our podcast. Today, we just talked to the founders of Virtuous Vittles, which is a fantastic, fantastic plant-based dog food that the dogs think is meat, but it's not. So we talked to the founders. There's my little Sunday making an appearance. We just recently talked to Dr. Neil Barnard about the food pyramid. Wish we had had Dr. O'Shea there as well. He made very similar points, but I really like some of the things that you said. And we also cover history, like the history of the vegan movement in the United States, which is pretty much ignored. I recently learned that Benjamin Franklin said meat is murder. Who knew? And I'm sure most of you know Red Foo from LMFAO. He's also a vegan. We did a whole series with him. And currently, our lead movie is How Not to Die. Dr. Neil Barnard's Dr. Michael Greger's incredible book that is a multiple New York Times bestseller turned into an incredible documentary. This has really hit a nerve because people don't want to die. So it's really burst through the vegan bubble. And then we do fun things like Green Goddesses Take New York with a couple of very fun young activists, actresses who talk about their very, very radical, fun approaches to animal activism. We also cover criminal trials. I never actually worked at NBC, but I worked at CNN prior to this. I had my own show on CNN Headline News and also worked at CBS and Warner Brothers and Telepictures. So I've been behind the curtain. They're not going to cover us the way we need to be covered. All you have to do is look at the advertisers: big meat, big dairy, big pharma. Forget about it. So that's one of the main reasons that I started Unchained TV was to try to take some of those skills that I learned. I also did a little stint at the network that covers trials, Core TV. And so we cover the trials of animal activists. We've covered the Zoe Rosenberg trial. This trial about this, we did 30 hours of live programming about Zoe Rosenberg's trial. Sadly, she was convicted, but she's in house arrest right now. And we show the footage that the jurors were not allowed to see. If they had been allowed to see that, they probably wouldn't have convicted her. So we collaborate with other organizations, all the big ones, PETA, Farm Sanctuary, Direct Action Everywhere, Switch for Good. Is a very long list of groups that have their own channel on Unchained TV. So Mercy for Animals. So they give us their content and then we give them a channel. And we also have a fast channel, which is free ad-supported television, which basically goes out to a whole bunch. There's a whole new thing. As you probably know, the media industry is changing very rapidly. And so there are people who don't even want to get Amazon Prime and Netflix. They want completely free TV. So now there's a whole bunch of platforms they're called probably names you may never have heard of. I never heard of them till we got a fast channel like Meta X. But people around the globe, millions of people are watching these because it's ad supported. We don't get any money for it, but because we're a nonprofit, but we have a channel. So last year, well, in 2024, we had across all platforms, including our social media, 20 million views. And we just finished adding up our views for 2025. We've jumped up to more than 50 million views. So we're really having an impact. We're bursting through the vegan bubble. One of the reasons I started this is that, I don't know about you, but I assume everybody on this call is vegan already. I went to one too many documentary screenings where everybody was vegan, subjecting ourselves to more horrific footage of animal suffering. Well, we all already agree, it's like constant preaching to the converted and traumatizing of the converted. So the whole idea is we want our vegan supporters, but we do want to get beyond the vegans. So what you can do is download Unchained TV on your phone or on your TV with an Amazon Fire Stick, a Roku device, or an Apple TV device. Also, if you have a Samsung or an LG TV, we're on all Samsung and LG TVs, but you have to go into the TV and download it. This is another really great film that we got there trying to kill us that is just beautifully produced, and it really talks about how these industries are trying to kill the African American community and other minority communities. Sled dogs. Wow, this one is intense. Won many awards. And this is an example of a film that had a really good run on Canadian television quite a few years ago. And it really needs to be seen again because the Iditarod is continuing. So I could go on all day. Bottom line, I urge you guys to check out Unchained TV. You could watch it online, but download it on your phone. I mean, you got, 20 some people on this call if you all downloaded it. And then I want to cover one other thing. So, hopefully you guys will take that couple of seconds to download it on your phone. The reason why that's important, you can text any of these videos to anybody and you can email them via your phone. You can also do it online, but by grabbing the URL, and you can also do it by sharing like this. You could share it to your X account, blah, 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 right there. Now, somebody who's not vegan might be a fan of the Jenners, and oh dear, well, sometimes other X things pop up, but you can share, suffice it to say, you can share all these videos. So now I want to move to Veg Media Watch. And I hope that Dr. O'Shea is still on, because one of the people you mentioned, Nina, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Teishold. Anyway, this is an incredible genius idea developed by a friend of mine. And we're both sort of in it on the ground floor, but he's doing all the hard work. And basically, it's, as you've discussed, there is a war on veganism. And if I say nothing else today, please do not repeat meat industry talking points. Okay? I can't tell you how many times I've had vegans tell me, yeah, but you don't want to eat those veggie burgers. No, we want to eat the veggie burgers. Of course, nothing should be eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I hear vegans repeating meat industry talking points. Why? Because we're human beings and we're being saturated with this nonsense just like everybody else. So it's just human nature. But I urge everybody to not repeat the idea that veganism is going out of style, that it's a fad. I agree with, everybody who said we are growing, and we are going, it's like a volcano. The more they push us down, we're going to explode. And it is that phase 3 of fighting us, but we're going to burst through that. We're relentless and unstoppable. So that's what we're going to do. And so definitely veganism is not going extinct. The word vegan was just invented in 1944. So that was like, didn't even enter the dictionary till 1962 or 65. So Veg Media Watch, I urge everybody just to go to vegmediawatch.org. And I'll put it in the chat too, but please do this. This is so important. And join the rapid response team. How do you do that? You just put your email address in. Now, basically, this combs the internet and particularly social media for articles that attack veganism and articles that praise veganism. If they praise veganism, we give them kudos. If they attack veganism, Daily Mail equates pork with legumes in Health Story. Help Veg Media Watch combat anti-vegan bias in the mainstream media. The Daily Mail reports that pork is as healthy as legumes. Okay, so when you sign up, you get a very easy way to repost and comment. This is an article, Farewell Vegans, You Will Not Be Missed. Okay, now there's a lot of also vegans who say, oh, I don't do X. Please do X, because that's what the journalists are on. They're on X and they're on LinkedIn. So by saying, do I like the owner of X? No, but it's what they're using. So when you sign up, you will get an email that allows you to go in and retweet this, okay? And you can retweet it, and then you can comment and you can tag. So here's one. The LA Times editors did the LA Times editors register the irony of promoting steak when the beef industry contributed to the wildfires that burned down parts of the city last year? So you can then retweet it, repost it, and comment. And when you comment, if you can tag the people that are being tagged in the original story, let me tell you that Nina, whatever her name is, one of the articles was done about her, and she responded. And there was a back and forth that went like 5 times as she tried to defend the observation that she was getting money. And so it was a very effective interchange. Let me tell you, I was in the mainstream media for 35 years. No reporter wants to be called out on any public forum. Why? It has nothing to do with this subject. It's that everybody is, it's a, it's a den of thieves. People are stabbing everybody in the back. Your boss has a friend that they want to hire and replace you with. There's somebody else who wants to take your job. Any of that can be used by other people who don't care about veganism, but they can use a critique, a public critique of your reporting to hurt your career. So I remember I've only been called out like 3 times, and it was by very tiny publications. Once I adjusted the rabbit ears many years ago, and somebody wrote an article about why is this reporter going in and interfering by adjusting the rabbit ears. And, the news director called me in, and what's this? And I remember it to this day. And that was not a big publication. So one of the things that we could really do by joining Veg Media Watch, and it's so fast, it doesn't take very much time. So I'd like to find out, I'll stop my presentation now, how many people, we've got 21 people, how many people are willing to, go on your phone and download Unchained TV free app, absolutely free. And how many people are willing to sign up to be on the rapid response team of Veg Media Watch, VEG. And let me just say one last thing. I know that there are people who will, it's human nature, they will not sign up for Veg Media Watch, but they will complain about the coverage. I want to make sure it's .org. Yeah, it's .org, vegmediawatch.org. But they will spend hours talking to their vegan friends complaining about the media coverage. This takes literally less than a minute every day. If you sign up, an email will be sent to your inbox. You click on it, you hit X, you hit LinkedIn. You don't have to hit every single social media. So I would love to see a show of hands of who's willing to sign up for Unchained TV by downloading the free app on your phone, and how many people are willing to sign up to be part of the rapid response team, Veg Media Watch. I assure you this will have an impact on journalists and discourage them from writing hit pieces.
Jane, I think this is a great idea. I have my hand raised, but we'll hopefully get some more hands for you. And there's one other person that we were just going to introduce. It's we're way over time, but Max Broad of DCFA, DC Voters for Animals. I don't know if he's still here, but Max, you want to just say hello really quickly? He might have left. Okay, he was in the audience, and we'll have to get him next time. Jane, that was powerful, and congratulations on your journalistic products that you're putting out there and trying to counter misinformation and put out great real information and do actual journalism in this area. I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and I hope you'll come back again for another webinar.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
I hope everybody signs up, even if you don't raise your hand. It's so crucial.
I hope so too. I don't know if we have any last comments from any of our speakers, but I would just like to thank everyone for joining us today, and our speakers and our audience. And hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did and learned as much as I did. We hope to do another one in April, and hope you'll join us then as well. We're thinking about doing it kind of in a lunch hour and not late at night, maybe when people are getting hungry and want to just have dinner. But it's been a great program today, and we really appreciate all of you being here, sharing this information with us, the speakers and our audience as well. So we'll sign off. Mac, thanks for helping us. We had a little difficulty at the beginning. Hopefully we'll work that out for the next one. Take care, everybody.